Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. It's no secret that over the course of the past couple of months, Warzone has been in some rough spots. Pretty much ever since the Pacific update went live, we've seen a lot of issues surface with the game. And recently, they really have stepped it up in terms of communication. We've been hearing a lot more about their future plans, what they are working to fix, so on and so forth. What we don't see much of, though, is the actual devs themselves talking about issues. Now, luckily enough, I was able to speak with some of the devs alongside some other creators prior to season 2 and get some new information on how they feel about the game, what they're planning on doing. That was really cool. But stuff like that doesn't really happen all that often, which is why I was particularly interested when earlier this past week, Matthew Ventures, who is now a former dev on Warzone, actually posted a 50-minute long YouTube video talking about his time with Raven and working on Warzone. And in this video, he goes over a lot of different stuff. He talks about some of the issues with the game, his experience working on that dev team and what it was like versus other opportunities that he's been in. And I wanted to sort of break down some of the stuff today because it does give us a really interesting insight on the sort of behind the scenes of Warzone, which we really don't get much look into at all, honestly. So as we go through this all, if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. And if you're new here or if you have not already subscribed, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD. So feel free to hit that sub button, turn on those post notifications. That way you'll always know whenever I post a new video. So first things first, I just want to say I think it's really cool that Matthew actually went out and made this video. I checked out some of the other stuff on his channel and he's actually worked on several other different games, God of War, Fortnite, etc. And I think it's really cool that he actually goes out of his way to post videos talking about what the experience was like working on this stuff, because it gives us a completely different point of view. And this video in particular about Warzone offers us a lot of information that we wouldn't have otherwise known about. I would highly recommend going and checking out the video if you have the time. It's a bit long, like I said, it's like 50 minutes, but he goes into a lot of detail about what it was like working on Warzone and how he sort of approached different issues, his thoughts on the game, his thoughts on working there. It was really cool. But like I said, I wanted to get into some of the stuff that he explained in the video and talk about it more because curiously enough, it does sort of line up with a lot of the community's, I guess, perception of the game up until this point. So the first thing, one of the first things he talked about was why certain things haven't been fixed, haven't been updated, or perhaps why some things just, you know, don't really seem like a priority in terms of, you know, getting attention from the devs. And the way that he sort of described this is that Warzone is a moving train, right? And in order to fix some of these things, they would have to stop the train, take it to the depot, take off the wheels and put new wheels on so that it could work correctly. They'd basically have to rebuild the game as we know it to fix certain things. This includes things like console FOV because of hardware limitations. We of course heard from the devs when I was able to talk to them before how they just weren't able to successfully get Warzone to run smoothly on old console tech. Hence why we don't have a console FOV. If they were to try and get that to work, they'd have to basically stop the game as it is right now and start rebuilding it, which, as I've also mentioned before, just doesn't seem like the prime use of their resources or the priority for their resources, considering Warzone 2 is really not all that far down the road. It just would not be a, you know, a totally worthwhile effort to them, I think, in their opinion. And he sort of backs that up. Matthew sort of speaks on that, saying, you know, this is a train that can't really stop because it is a live service and there's so many expectations with this game and with the updates that rebuilding it is just not something that is necessary in the eyes of the devs. So for certain things like that, that's really the main reason why we don't see some things fixed or updated, or why it's taken so long to see certain things updated. Now, something that I found very interesting was that Matthew actually talked about how they use player analytics and data and how important that is, especially in a free-to-play environment, using data that says, hey, this gun is being used this much. Why is that? Why is it better than, you know, why is gun A better than gun B? Or why is mode A being played 10 times more than mode B? He said that he didn't feel like they were using that data enough to really further what the community wanted. And we'll get to that a little bit later on into the video. There's a different thing that sort of ties in with that as well. But he made a specific note to say that player analytics and player data that supported certain things being well received in game just was not being, you know, used efficiently in the office, which I found to be kind of interesting because you think, hey, if this mode's a huge success, we should try and build off of this more and make more things like this to, you know, give the player base what they want. Another very interesting and sort of surprising note that he brought up was the fact that some of the devs don't even play the game. That's not to say all the devs aren't playing. I see plenty of them. I try and follow them on Twitter, you know, in case they're talking about the game, future updates and whatnot. I try and stay in the loop for you guys, but I see plenty of devs talking about playing the game, having fun, getting wins, playing, you know, Rebirth Iron Trials or whatever it is. But really, I feel like in the vast majority of the departments working on this game, maybe with the exception of people who are more storyline driven, how are you not playing the game, but you're expected to fix things and understand why this is not being well received, or understand why this is broken, or how you could potentially fix this or make this better? That to me just seems very strange, and I was very surprised by the fact that that's not like a mandatory thing. You got to be able to know the game, have a feel for the game, and understand the inner workings of it to fix it, right? To create things for it. That was very surprising and honestly a little bit disappointing to hear. Something he actually brought up as well as we get later on into the video that also came up when I was talking to the devs prior to season 2 is that the build for the game is causing so many issues for the game itself because it is too bloated. Obviously, it is based and built on old tech. That's problem number one. We don't have a full current gen build for that, and probably won't until Warzone 2 drops, unfortunately. But also, with the addition of all the Cold War stuff and all the Vanguard stuff, the game is so bloated that even the internal versions and builds of the game had issues where they would crash, where they couldn't run, they couldn't go into the office and do work because the game is so buggy and so messed up that it was even breaking for them. And obviously we know about all the issues on the live end where pings don't work, where weapons won't unlock, where so many different things have been broken over the course of time because with all this new content comes even more new issues. I did find it interesting that he sort of reiterated, yeah, this build is so bloated to the point where it is breaking in ways that we don't even fully know. Also, quick side note, I'm sure you can probably tell, while I'm sort of skimming through some of the main points that Matthew talked about in this video, he goes into so much more detail in his. So like I said earlier, I would highly recommend checking it out. I will leave a link to his channel down in the description below. But moving on, one thing that he did point out that he was really surprised by was how small the dev team at Raven was versus the dev team at like Epic for Fortnite, which was much larger in scale, but how Raven was still able to successfully run Warzone. Now, of course, yes, it has its issues, yes, it has its problems, but because the dev team is so small, it's impressive that they've done what they have in the past with the game as is. Now, personally, I think that'll probably change a little bit in the future. I know they have been trying to hire a lot more recently. I think there was also a recent article that came out that said, you know, Call of Duty and Activision are struggling to keep people in jobs because the market is just so hot right now for developers, for engineers, so on and so forth. So that's also something kind of interesting. But we also got word that Infinity Ward is leading the development for Warzone 2, and they are a much larger and much more experienced team in this specific area. So that could be something that we definitely see impact gameplay in the future once we do see Modern Warfare 2 and of course Warzone 2 as well. Now, moving on, another very interesting point that Matthew made in this video is that he felt like they didn't reuse content enough when they could have, just to keep the game feeling fresh and feeling updated. I think we can all agree that fresh, completely new, frequent, and consistent content is the best possible thing for a live service game like Warzone. Seeing frequent updates, seeing new content drop, that keeps players, you know, coming back to the game. It keeps retention up, it keeps numbers up. It's a win-win for everybody. Obviously, while Warzone does get new content with the mid-season updates, with the seasonal updates, there are lulls every single season in content. Just before the mid-season update, we usually have 1 to 2 weeks where there is nothing going on. Before the end of a season, we have 2 to 3 weeks where there is nothing going on. What Matthew talks about is that if they have old content that they could repurpose in certain ways, having that content be reused and repurposed and put into the game to keep things afloat for a little while and sort of hold players over is better than just having nothing at all. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. For instance, he made the example, he specifically worked on the Christmas trees during the holiday event, and then also the elves. They could have reused that for Valentine's Day and made the Christmas trees hearts and increased the loot there. They could do it for Easter. They could do it for Halloween. Yeah, obviously it's reused content. It's not the #1 most exciting thing, but it's something, and that's better than nothing. In this case, that's a huge point that I feel like he made that I heard him say that and I was like, wow, could not have said that better myself. I'll always take something, even if it's small, over having these content lulls, which are so frequent. Then going back to our quick conversation earlier about player analytics and data not being fully utilized, another huge point that he made that I, again, really felt like was well said, he mentioned how the communication has drastically improved with the community. They have been way better about updating the Trello board, being very specific in their patch notes, putting out posts saying, hey, this is going to be coming then. We think this is a better idea to implement this now. We're going to change this because we feel like it's better. their communication certainly has improved, which is great. But Matt specifically talked about how they do a lot of talking, but not a ton of listening. Now, for what it's worth, I do think the listening aspect and taking community feedback into consideration is getting better. During that call that we had with the devs prior to season 2, there was a lot of back and forth conversations where they actively wanted to hear our thoughts and our input on certain things. More of that, I guess you could say, two-way line of communication, talking but also listening to an equal level, is very much so needed. That is how we improve the general state of the game. That's how Warzone starts to sort of revive itself. Clearly, it's gone downhill since the Modern Warfare era. There is no denying that. But to get it back up to that level, or even get it close to that level, there does have to be more of that two-way communication and listening and taking into account the community's feedback, which, again, Matthew said he felt like was a subpar performance so far in the listening aspect. Talking has improved, but there's still another half of that should be going into the greater good of the game, right? And again, I really do agree with that, and I'm hoping we can see more of that in the future. Those are just a couple of the things that Matthew talks about in this video. There is so much more that he goes into detail on, talking about how he thinks Warzone could have more in-game challenges and little, I guess, side quests in a way for loot buffs, fishing, racing, stuff like that. Could be really cool and make Warzone a more unique experience. He goes into detail on a lot of other stuff. Again, I really feel like his video is worth watching if you have an interest in what goes on behind the scenes and how a dev on the game or a former dev on the game really feels about the state, the quality of the game, and his experience working there. Super cool video. Huge shout out to Matthew for posting it in the first place. There is not enough of this in the gaming industry, I feel like, and as someone who really enjoys getting to learn about that stuff because I'm so ignorant to game dev as is, I find it so interesting. Hopefully we got some cool info in this video though. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know by dropping a like on it. And of course, if you're new to the channel or if you have not already subscribed, every day I got you covered with everything going on in COD, news, updates, loadouts, tips. You're gonna find it all right here. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. As always, if you want to check out any of my partners, be sure to use code WHosImmortal for a discount on all Scuff, G Fuel, Gamer Advantage, and Control Freak products. And the links for all those can be found down in the description below. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.